Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode we're going to do a It Came From the Network. And if you're not familiar with It Came From the Network, it's where we review the weird, wild, campy, and sometimes just downright bad stuff you can find formerly on the WWE Network, but now on Peacock. That being said, kind of had a little bit of a time constraint today. I wanted to put out a video, so I looked for something a little shorter. I went to the WWE home video section, which is where they have the Coliseum Video and Silvervision, old VHS tapes that they used to put out back in the 80s and early 90s. So I chose one that I actually never seen because it was a Silvervision only release, and I don't live in the United Kingdom. And it was Davy Boyce Smith, the British Bulldog. So it's a best of British Bulldog Davy Boyce Smith. It's 5 matches, so relatively short. It came in just under an hour. One of my favorite wrestlers of the era. I like Davy Boy. I thought he was awesome. I love the British Bulldogs as a team. With that being said, let's jump into the review. First match on the card is Davy Boy. Obviously, these are all going to be Davy Boy. Davy Boy Smith versus the Warlord. I thought this was an okay match. It was kind of strange, and again, I'm trying to judge this with 2021 eyes, looking back at something that happened 30 years ago. The crowd was a lot different. The crowd I kind of forgot how the crowd used to be in that era, how they weren't constantly making noise. It was a little bit weird. This match moved a little bit slow. It was 2 of the bigger guys. Obviously, Warlord was a big muscle-bound guy, if you're not familiar with him. A huge, massive man. Both of these guys were, actually. I thought it was a solid match. Thought it was okay. Obviously, with it being a best of Davy Boy Smith, he picks up the win here. I'm going to give this match a 2. And by the way, I forgot to mention in the beginning, we rank everything here on a scale of 1 to 5. 5 being the best, 1 being the worst. I'm going to give this one a 2. Thought it was an okay match. Again, kind of hard to judge with 2022 eyes. Something had happened in either 91 or 92. I believe this tape was put out at the end of 1992. So I want to say all of these matches happened within that time frame. This came from the This Tuesday in Texas pay-per-view. So I forget the exact date of that. But that's where we have it. It was a good match. It was okay. It was, out of every match on here, it was my least favorite of the night. Which is good, because it starts off, you kind of want the better ones to go as it goes on. Next up, British Bulldog versus Rick the Model Martel. I like this better. This match had a better pacing. Davy Boy, to me, worked best when he wrestled guys like Martel, like Bret Hart, like Roddy Piper, that were a little bit smaller. Could still hang with him on the strength part of it, but it gave a little bit of a better dynamic when he wrestled these really good wrestlers. A little bit shorter match. I was surprised that the Warlord match was longer than the Rick Martel match. Again, looking at it at 2021 compared to what WWF was doing in 22. I'm sorry, we're just 2 days into the year as of this recording. Looking at what they were doing 30 years ago, it's kind of a lot different, and there weren't many matches that were over 10 minutes that weren't pay-per-view matches. This was, I want to say it was about 5-6 minutes. A solid match, of course. Davy Boy picks up the win. I'm going to give this one a 3. I thought it was a pretty good match. I liked it. I enjoyed both guys in here. Thought it was solid. Next up, we have probably my favorite match of the night. Davy Boy Smith, the British Bulldog, versus Shawn Michaels with Sherry Martell. And this is probably... I really enjoyed this. This is probably one of the one of the better matches of that era of both of these guys. I mean, obviously, two absolute legends in wrestling, two of your mainstays, two of your big stars at the time. Shawn Michaels just newly becoming heel at the time, leaving the Rockers, going with Sherry to become his own thing, become the Heartbreak Kid, basically. This was a really good match, really solid from beginning to end. Like I said with Rick Martel, these guys worked really well together. They were able to put together a really good match. I thought it was really solid. The only thing that took a little bit off of it for me at the end is Bulldog wins, but he wins via disqualification. So to me, that took a little bit of it off. I'm going to give the match a 4. Probably would have been a 5 if it was a clean win. But I understand what they were doing. They were trying to build up Shawn Michaels to be something bigger than he had previously been. So, hindsight being 2020, I still think it was a really solid match. Next up, we had a match I was kind of surprised to see on here because I didn't remember the two ever wrestling each other, and I didn't remember their paths actually going across each other that much. And that's British Bulldog versus Earthquake. Earthquake, of course, was brought to the ring with his manager Jimmy Hart, and British Bulldog had in his corner Andre the Giant. And probably, I think after this, Andre might have had 2 or 3 other appearances for WWE, and then a couple other appearances outside of WWE, one in All Japan, one in AAA, I want to say. I know one was Mexico, or a couple in Mexico. I want to say AAA, but I'm not 100% sure. And then one WCW, or Clash of the Champions 20. But this was basically really near the end of Andre the Giant. I don't think he lived maybe a year and a half after this, but this was definitely one of his last WWE matches, or last WWE appearances. Like I said, he maybe had 2 or 3 left. The match itself, probably my least favorite on the night, and I say that with a grain because I like both these guys. Earthquake's one of the guys that he's kind of a hidden gem for me. He's a guy that I really like that I don't hear a lot of people talk about much. Thought it was an okay match, of course. British Bulldog picks up the win with a little bit of help from Andre. I'm going to give this a 2. Again, probably my least favorite match on the night. And last but not least, the 5th and final match on the show. British Bulldog Davy Boy Smith versus IRS Irwin R. Scheister. Again, much like with Martel and Michaels before, IRS, the dichotomy of his style versus the dichotomy of the power style of the Bulldog at the time, worked really well in this. Other than the Shawn Michaels match, this is my second favorite match out of the 5. I thought it was a really solid match. IRS, again, another guy who kind of gets lost in the shuffle, that people don't talk about how good he really was. Much like Rick Martel, much like Earthquake even, and I don't want to say this as a bad thing, but out of everyone on the card, the Warlord's probably the least accomplished of the wrestlers. But I thought this was a really, really decent match. Of course, Davey Boy picks up the win. I'm going to give this one a 4. I thought it was good. Again, my second favorite match of the night. Only topped by the Shawn Michaels match, which for obvious reasons. Shawn Michaels is probably going to get a better match out of most people than anyone else in the world at the time. But with that being said, it was a nice little hour time frame. I was able to watch it, get in, have a little enjoyment, bring me back to the time. Remember watching this when I was a kid, watching this era of the show of WWF at the time. I thought it was a solid outing. It's definitely something I would recommend you, if you haven't seen and you're a fan of the Bulldog, going out and watching this. I'm going to give it overall, I'm going to give it a 3. It was solid. There were some things I could have done. I wish we would have done them a little bit better. I wish maybe they would have put a Bret Hart match on here, or, maybe replace a Warlord match with a Bret Hart match or something of that nature. Other than that, I'd be really nitpicking to say that this was anything more than what it was. And I know it's supposed to be a best of Davey Boy Smith, but it's more of here's 5 matches of Davey Boy Smith. It's not his best matches by far, and none of these videos really were. But it was a solid thing. It was one of those things where as a kid you would see it in the video store and rent, and you would love it, and it was awesome. And it was a great, to me, I really enjoyed it. It was really fun. I recommend checking it out if you have Peacock. With that being said, my name is George Coles, and this has been another episode of It Came From the Network.